Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Mana on the Rocks. It is I, the Irrational Agent, Joe. Joining me this week, as always, the Rational Agent, Atlas.
Hello, everybody.
This week, Atlas went to a tournament, and we talk about that for a little bit, but it kind of serves as more or less the framework for us to kind of talk about like the meta and like how I've been viewing like CDH recently, and we talked a little bit about like falling out of the game a little bit, but also like kind of invigorating in some areas. It's a good time. We also talk about some of the new cards and new sets and whatnot. A lot of fun stuff happening in the Magic world. But I'm more interested in the fun stuff happening in the tournament world. Atlas, what do we got coming up?
All right, so I think as far as tournaments coming up in our area, the next big one, I guess next week, me and our friend Steven will be down at Fishbowl, so we'll be playing down there. Hopefully we'll do all right. But that should be like a fun experience. And then after that, the next week on Sunday, July 28th, there is an event in Bellingham at Cardhaven. This is an RCQ for the PDX regional circuit. That one's coming up. And then I think after that, there isn't a lot. I believe there's going to be an event on I think it's the 31st of August. I think there's something coming up then, but it hasn't been announced yet. So keep your eyes, ears. Whatever
Mystery tournament.
Yeah. Anyways, stay tuned to us. We'll keep you posted as we figure out what it is. I think that's kind of it. August looks to be a little bit of a light month in terms of events. I'm just hyped about Bloomborough. That's my big event. That's my big not coming announcement is check out Bloomborough. That's sweet. Really hyped.
Yeah, more comments. That's what I need. I'm a Pauper gamer now. All the events, as always, in the doobly-doo, in the show notes. So if you are able to make it out there, we got you covered on all the deets for it. But my main person who's got the deets covered for me this week is my boy Dylan. Thank you for being a patron. We appreciate you, my friend. You should come on down and get a drink with us.
It's been a minute since we got together.
Yeah, it has. It's been like a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Sorry this like all keeps happening. I guess to both you and to the audience. I don't know. I think I've been like checking out a bit more frequently on CDH. I don't know. I've been liking playing single player card games more again, and I still enjoy CDH. I still think CDH is really, really interesting, but I think the drive is just elsewhere right now. Like I still enjoy the games, and I still like Commander as like a competitive format. I still think it's very interesting. It's just the spark isn't as bright as it once was.
Yeah, I get that.
Because I think for the longest time, like it's weird going from like a card game where like you have a statistical 50% average like win rate to like cut that half to 25, and I think that did like a number on my mental. And I don't know, playing 1v1 card games has been better because I'm like, oh, I do still have the sauce a little bit,
Yeah, I mean, winning just feels good, right?
It really, really does. But like, I don't know, there's something about like the dopamine hit of like winning Commander that's just like, yeah, I did that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I would definitely agree with that.
I don't really know how else to like further describe it other than like winning Commanders always feels cool, but it is so hard fought, and you can play as correctly and as tightly as possible and just be fucked over by situations that you just have very little control over. And that's just really tough.
Yeah, especially when like you feel like you didn't have control over whatever the particular game action that you lost to was. Like you're like, dude, I really don't think you should do this. Here's why. Like, please, and you're trying like as much as you can to influence someone to not do XYZ thing. And just like maybe not even because it's bad for you necessarily, but because you think it's gonna bump a player other than the person even making the game action so incredibly far ahead, and they do it anyways, and you're like, well, I guess we've lost. Like maybe it's like removing, like, please, I know you really, really, really want to activate your Thrasios, but please do not remove that like Drana Limbala or whatever, because this is a player is just going to immediately kill us. And they're like, no, I have to spin my Thrasios. And you're like, please don't. And they're like, nope, I'm doing it. And you're like, okay, dude, whatever. And then they remove it, and you immediately die to Cedh. And you're like, man, I did tell you. Or like,
that's crazy.
I was playing a game earlier today actually, and it was like, okay, well, like I'm casting my main deck native or whatever. 3 mana, turn 3, it's on curve, no other permanents, 2 cards in the hand. Like I'm just casting this card because it's literally just like if I can get something online later, like maybe counters or something, like it can start to translate into value. But it's just being mana efficient. I'm gonna cast it here, and it's like, okay, should we counter this or should we counter the Corval player's Corval? Where if we counter it again, like they can literally never cast it again, and the Turbo player will just be out of the game. And they're like, nah, I'm gonna counter the native. Okay, dude, I have 2 lands in my hand, but sure, let's counter this, whatever. It's like I don't think you should do that, but okay, here we are. It gets countered, and then you're like, Corval's like, all right, win the game. You're like,
Task Corval, win
tough.
the game.
I really didn't see that one coming.
Honestly, I wish you would have saw that one coming, because then you could have prevented that win.
I know, that was all on me.
No, but it's a lot of stuff like that where like you try and like play as correctly as possible, and like someone else just thinks that they have the read, and you go, well, I'm powerless to your attempt to the read, and we just kind of have to let the cookie crumble where it may,
Yeah, there's only so much influencing you can do before it's like obnoxious or whatever. And it's like sometimes you have to politic really, really hard, but if you politic really, really hard on everything, even if like people are just constantly making bad decisions, they just start to tune you out. And you're like, please, I guess I have to save it for the worst bad decision that I'm gonna see here, but I'm just gonna die to all of these anyways. So it's like, yeah,
it just is what it is. I don't know. It's silly, but it's really funny, like the situation of like, oh yeah, I need my Thrasios to spin. It's like, dog, like especially in a pod with a Sisse, like you have to understand, like you're not like, sure, being able to do your Thrasios thing and being able to grind, super good, super valid. However, like you are not the priority when it comes to like the activated abilities. There's a Sisse at the table that needs to be stopped.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you don't answer it, if you like remove the thing that is answering it, like you're just hosed either way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, speaking of people not listening to you and getting punted out, you went to a tournament recently.
Yeah, I mean, like 2 weeks ago or whatever now, but it's been a minute.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was over at Cowtown, had an absolute blast of a time. It was really, really enjoyable.
So, what was the experience like? Because this was another East Coast tournament for you.
Yeah, it was once again very different. Just like a lot of the decks is like what I expected to face. It was like mostly Sisse and Blue Farm and Roxai, like those a lot of native as well, but like it was mostly those types of decks. Didn't really see anything that was like super exciting. Like everything was pretty standard in meta. I think there was a lot of odd Nixilis running around actually. I was really surprised at that. But aside from that, it was fun. I think the players were enjoyable to play with for the most part. It's just like the big thing that I had realized and settled on after playing over there a second time was that like the way people play the game is just incredibly different. And it basically boiled down to the West Coast meta tends to be a lot more collaborative, like let's work together to make sure that nobody gets too far ahead, and like this person is not like running away with the game, so I'm gonna like let you become a little bit more of a problem, or I'm gonna like answer this person's thing because they're getting too much. Versus the East Coast was like, bro, send it, I don't care, I'm just jamming. You're like, okay. And I think obviously some of that's gonna be skill diff, but from my experience at least, a lot of the players that I played against were like, I see a window, I'm sending it. And you're like, this is not a window. Just because you have the cards in your hand does not mean this is a window. What about 3 of your opponents being entirely untapped makes you think this is a window? And it's just like, interesting.
Or like the one small upset, and now you have taken away the one bit of counter magic, and now the person that gets to untap with counter magic backup because they didn't have a free spell just gets to get there. Yeah,
I think like one of the really weird ones for me was like, I was in 4th seat, mulled to like 4. I was really far behind. I had my keep was like, it was so awful, but I just had nothing else to possibly like try and like, it could only get worse. I had seen like a bunch of no landers or like unplayable hands, right? And I get 4 lands and a reanimate, and I was like, or 2 creature decks. It's like Nadu, Edric, and Talion. I was like, Talion will kill something, or like one of these decks will counter a creature that kind of matters eventually anyways. We'll keep this, I guess. And then like turn like 6 or something, I like had finally top decked an Enlightened Tutor, so I e-tutored for a Phyrexian Metamorph. I had a Bowmasters on the battlefield, and I was going to copy the Nadu player's Nadu in order to like start generating value off of the Talion player drawing cards, because I think there's like a Mystic Remora from the Nadu player. The Talion has their fish, and their commander in play, and then Edric has their commander in play, like a bunch of mana and cards in hand and stuff. And I'm just over here like 2 or 3 cards in hand or whatever. Tutor for this thing that everyone knew I was tutoring for, and there was just like I was in 4th seat, like super obviously behind, and the Italian player taps out to mana drain my Phyrexian Metamorph, and I was just like, dude, what? Like, there are literally 2 other players' turns that you have to get through before it gets back to you, and you can try and win the game. Why are you countering my thing if you have no? He's like, yeah, I have no more interaction for this Nadu player, and I was like, what? What about anything that's going on made you think that I was gonna have any answers? Like, why are you countering my stuff? They're like, well, I need the mana. I was like, bro, someone's gonna cast a spell. They both have like 12 cards in their hand.
Anything else? What do you mean? Also, like, someone's so set up you can just waste the counter spell on a developmental place. That's great.
It was literally the first spell. They had like passed the turn. I was like, okay, cool. End step and Lightning Tutor. And they're like, okay, cool. So like literally the first spell cast in the rotation, like after they passed the turn, was my Phyrexian Metamorph, and they fired off a tap out counter spell, and I was like, what the heck? Like, catches anything. I was like, what the heck is going on? They're like, I need the mana. And I was like, but like I said, I was just very confused. Like, you will get the mana. Like, and if you don't, it means that no one did anything. So it doesn't matter if you wait another turn. Like,
and you still get the whole counter spell. That means you're still living.
Yeah. So then that game ended up drawing because the Edric player kept they burned a bunch of time, shoved some cards that could result in a win, cloned my Orchestra Masters, and we machine gunned the Italian player to the point where they were like, ID? And we were all like, yeah, okay, that's ID. So yeah, that was kind of what the meta was like. It's just like people just firing stuff off because they want to. It's not a bad thing. It just feels like impulse control is lower over there. Like there's just like, and once again, could just be the players that I was playing with, but like just the bad RNG. But it felt like a lot of things were just like fired off because they could be, and no one's calculating really like, maybe I should wait on this. Maybe I should wait till an opportune time to maximize the value of my spell. It's like, I can cast, I will cast.
I wonder how much of that is like I don't know, is like Born Upon the Wind, Emergent Zone like big over there, because I feel like you don't need to incredibly. I don't understand the necessary to like, or the necessity rather, to like jam your win attempt whenever possible when like those cards enabled you to go kind of whenever.
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense to me.
I think there was also a big problem with like a lot of games were just getting forced into draws, which I think was like, people complain about draw meta and whatever. Like, I don't think that is even that big of a problem. The reason, at least from what I saw in my game and a bunch of others, is that people were forcing games into draws like way early. Like there were a couple of games, I think I played one game where people wanted to ID at like 40 minutes left on the clock, and I was like, what? Like, what? Guys, we're like halfway through time. There's still so much stuff could change. Why do you want to draw here? Like, I can't win. And I was like, you can't win right now? Like, there's 40 minutes left. There's a lot of things that could change and stuff that could happen differently, as long as you just play efficiently and keep the table moving. And for as much time as people would spend like burning the clock, taking random spontaneous game actions to force draws and like not allow other players to do things, like the communication levels were very low.
Really?
Like, it just felt like it did not feel, and it was maybe it was bad RNG. It did not feel like anyone was yapping over there. Like it felt like everyone was just kind of like, here's a card, countering it or no, and you're like, well, I mean, like, yes. And they're like, okay, pass turn. You're like, okay. Like, there's just like, there's people put spells on the stack and you're like, look, don't counter this, here's why, or like I'm thinking I can go get this to answer this thing. And I think part of that also might stem from the fact that like it seems like the meta over there is a lot more like we had mentioned, like individualistic versus collectivistic. And so it's like, I'm just looking out for my stuff. If my stuff gets countered, I don't really care what happens to the rest of the table, which is fair. Like, that's a valid way to play the game. It's just one of those things where you're like, I feel like you could maximize your win rates a lot more if you would like play collectivistically. Yeah. It's like a prisoner's dilemma thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for those who are not familiar with the prisoner's dilemma proof, it's a problem wherein you have two prisoners and they're separated, and basically if they snitch on one another, they're told if they snitch on their partner, they get a reduced prison sentence. Now, if they don't snitch on their partner, but their partner snitches on them, they're gonna get a prison sentence and their partner doesn't, right? But if neither one of them snitches on each other, they can't go to prison. Neither one of them can. And so, but if we tell you to snitch on your partner, and they do, and then we tell your other partner to snitch on you, and they do, we can send both of you to jail, right? So it's like, what are the options here? The options are that either one of them talks, and the other one goes to jail, which is bad for the person who goes to jail, but really good, or not really, but like solidly okay, good for the person who doesn't go to prison, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other option is they both snitch on each other, and they both go to jail, or that neither one of them snitches, and neither of them go to jail. Which, for the prisoners, this is the most beneficial, most positive outcome, right? So this yields the highest positive outcome. And so I think like it's just that aspect ratio it's all about how much can you trust your partner in crime, right? Like if there's trust there, if you're willing to take a chance and like bank on the fact that your partner will not snitch on you, you should not snitch on them, because then if you do, neither one of you goes away at all. Whereas if one of you snitches, the other one's going to go to jail for like a long period of time, whereas it'll be less for you, like much better, but still not great, right? Like, you still have to do like at least community service or whatever for the sake of like
the argument, for the person's
story, or the story or whatever. And I think like there's a very low overall trust coefficient. Like people just don't tend to like take chances on one another, and because of that, the total positive outcome of the table is overall reduced. Because one person is snitching, right? If we're relating it back to the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like over on the West Coast, at least in my experience, a lot more, maybe not even most, but like at least half of these pods are like neither person is talking, and there's a much higher trust coefficient. So people are willing to take the chance to believe one another, and because of that, your outcomes are multiplied, and you're able to live longer, have more enjoyable games, and like by playing more correctly, you tend to like do better. Whereas if you have low trust and you're betraying your partners, then you might do okay, but then like only a little bit, right? As opposed to doing really, really well. I'm starting to ramble, but yeah.
No, you're good. I really like the Prisoner's Dilemma stuff personally. I dove into like a huge like Wikipedia rabbit hole some time ago and got really like read up on the subject. But yeah, no, I mean like classic Prisoner's Dilemma is if both parties are involved are rational agents, both parties are going to choose essentially the negative option, the snitch option, because it's the most beneficial for them. And if you as a rational agent recognize that whoever you're playing with is a rational agent, they'll also recognize that snitching is the best chance for their game. And essentially you reduce the sentencing that you get, but it's still net negative. And in that situation, you both would have been better if you just cooperated instead of snitched on each other.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like logically we understand that there is at least a 50% chance in theory that it's actually higher than that, but like it's higher than 50%, about 50%, that your partner is going to like squeal, right? And if they do that, you're hacked. So therefore, like you said, being a rational agent, you should choose to squeal in order to reduce the terms of your outcome, your prison sentence or whatever. But if you're willing to take the chance, then you can actually like multiply it. Like it is significantly higher yield to not squeal, so long as both parties don't squeal.
Yeah. So are you familiar with the Magic Pro Sam Black?
Yes.
A while ago, he had like tweeted. I don't know. I was reading about some tweets that he did about he went to like a CDH tournament, and like he effectively got himself into a position where he had to like force a draw because that was just the most beneficial move for him. And it's just like it's really interesting that CDH kind of at a certain level boils down to just the prisoner's dilemma at a certain point, where like the kind of analogs for like snitching and cooperating is like, well, it's essentially cooperating with the table or acting in your own self-interest is really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
That kind of whole like this rotating 3v1 idea, or this 4-person free-for-all idea kind of stems from where is everybody like fitting in kind of that puzzle. Because part of the it's really funny. Part of the like deep dive that really started it is a YouTube channel called Veritasium, a fantastic YouTube channel. Love their science stuff. But they had a video kind of talking about like the prisoner's dilemma, and specifically repeated prisoner's dilemmas, and how back in I think the 80s there was this really big tournament ran by one of the game theory game theorists, where they're like, okay, so prisoner's dilemma. And everyone's competing for points. If both parties cooperate, they get the most points. If one person, defects and the other person cooperates, the person who defects gets the most points versus, the cooperation one. And then if both people defect, it's the least option for all. The same basic setup. The whole point is, here's roughly 200 rounds. And these scripts, these robots are playing against each other. And the strategy that came out on top was a strategy called tit for tat. And me and you have talked about this in the past, but I never really recognized it until now because I'm going to get somewhere with this. So the whole strategy, tit for tat, is this. It always chooses to go first. Always chooses to cooperate first. It's what's called a nice strategy. It will never be the first person in this game to defect. And then from that point on, it mirrors what your opponent does. If your opponent defects, I'm going to defect back, and kind of repeats for there. And watching that video and kind of going through the game theory, I recognized why your deck works so well here and it doesn't work well in the East Coast meta. One of the more interesting aspects of tit for tat is if and people have like studied and analyzed this specific tournament. They ran another one with some new additions and changes and everything. And tweaked all the parameters, the amount of strategies at play, what the metagame was, yada yada yada. One of the things that they found was that tit for tat really only works well in an environment where there's a critical mass of quote unquote nice strategies. It's not just tit for tat. There's a bunch of different strategies out there. They will always be the first. They will never be the first to defect. And that's kind of how I view the West Coast meta. There's a lot of people here that are willing to not be the first to defect, or not be the first to put a win on the stack. And tit for tat does really, really good in those environments because he's able to kind of leapfrog off of that and kind of stay ahead, or at least stay at parity. It's always either going to win in this quote-unquote game, or it's always going to draw. That's just by design how it ends up working. However, if you take tit for tat, that strategy, and you put it into an environment where there is a critical mass of naughty strategies, a lot of strategies that seek to be selfish in their own game plan, tit for tat doesn't really do too well. That's the East Coast meta analogy. And I don't know, I saw that video and I did the research. I'm like, fuck, that's what Alice is doing the entire time. I understand it now. I've cracked the code.
Yeah, that actually that makes a lot of sense, and it really coincides with sort of like the logic that I had come to grips with, is that if I go play in that area again, like over towards the East Coast or maybe even as far as the Midwest, like you just have to be more greedy. Like you can't afford to negotiate with people and like try and work together because they don't want to do that with you. Mm-hmm. They're just there to like send their game plan no matter what, no matter the consequences. So at that point, like king make and like spite play and blah 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 blah, whatever you want, like do whatever you can to push yourself further ahead because it tends to work better. Yeah,
on average, you're in kind of the prisoner's dilemma. You are the person that is snitching when the other person is cooperating. You are the one gaining the most in this given situation. Because generally speaking, when it comes to prisoner's dilemma, if it's a one-off thing, the rule of thumb is you're always choosing to defect in that situation. And the ideas change when it's a repeated game, because it's not just like a one-off thing. It's there's history here. There's reason. You're starting to learn your opponent, and so on and so forth. So, in an environment where everyone's looking to stick out for number one, you're kind of a bit of a sucker by taking a turn off to cast heuristic study and like Italian or whatever, or having like this smaller setup play and just kind of giving carte blanche to the turbo players, the greedy players. To kind of just do what you want because you tapped out on faith that people would stop you when that's not really what everyone's trying to do.
Yeah, they just kind of like let stuff resolve unless it's, and I think it's one of the reasons that Nadu did really well at that tournament was like they're only interacting with stuff that actively immediately wins the game right then from what I saw. And it's like they're like, oh yeah, that Shuko is like you only have 2 creatures, that's probably fine. You're like, I don't know about that one.
I don't know about that one. 4 triggers.
Like, I'll just kill the native later, right? We'll just counter the spell that actually wins the game. Like, I don't know, I'm pretty sure this spell actually wins the game.
It's really funny, like, hearing that. Because, like, I watched, I don't know if you watched, like, the Modern Horizons 3 Pro Tour, but I had to see what was going to happen. And it was all Nadu everywhere. And the fall and the coverage has been just a lot of talk about Nadu. So many turns, people will just go, yeah, land, dork, Nadu, Shuko, win the game immediately. And it's like, granted, they have, critical mass for 4 copies of a card, but, like, on average, our cards are just better and freer and more explosive. So yeah, 4 triggers on a Nadu, yeah, that can snowball into a win pretty easily. You need like a good draw.
Yeah, and like obviously like it wasn't like the hard fast rule. There were plenty of times when I saw people like, okay, let's counter this Shuko, okay, let's kill this Nadu, let's block the Timna or whatever. Like people aren't like being dumb. Like that's not all what I'm trying to say. Like they're not making like just absolutely like just awful plays, but a lot of it was just like, well, I get that, like, if I do this, the benefit for me is that I don't lose the game, and we see more turns, and I draw more cards, and we can, like, maximize the benefit here for everyone else other than this player if we interact with them right now. But if I do that, I can't counterspell your counterspell on my win attempt on my turn. Therefore, I don't think this spell's worth countering. And so they don't, and you're just like, okay, that's fine. I can't have a counterspell, or, like, I don't have one, can't counter it, whatever. That resolves, and someone's like, okay, put this, heuristic study into play or whatever, and it's like, yes, that is unfortunate. And then everyone's like, yeah, well, I'm not worried about feeding this because I'm gonna just win the game, right? And they feed 19 cards, someone has the counterspell or their removal spell to stop them, they're like, whoops, pass. And then the next person does the same thing, and they're like, whoops, pass. And you're just over here going, oh my god, please.
Someone try anything. I swear you could probably get there. Just do it.
Yeah, that was kind of my experience. It was just like, if you're not gonna like guarantee the win, don't send it. Like if you don't have 14 pieces of protection and a Grand Abolisher in play, don't not do a heuristic study. Please just wait, bide your time.
Or like if everyone's got like between 5 and 6 cards in hand, just dude, you can just play a bluffing game. You can do that in this game, right? Like and I'm sorry, I said the B word in the context of CDH. My apologies. Bluffing. Yeah, you can just bluff, like just hold open mana and just pass. Like you don't necessarily need like a Thrasios or a Thrasios type effect. But you just be like, oh, I'm holding up this mana for a reason. You can just hold open mana. That's fine. Make people go to their own assumptions. Like that's totally that's kind of like a foundational building block and foundational like learning moment in like Magic is like sometimes you just hold open mana and just make your opponent think they're in trouble when they are.
Just scare them.
Just scare them. That's all you have to do. Just untap, draw, land, pass the turn. And your opponents will go, yeah, that guy's got like every answer in the world or like something to stop me. That is scary. I am just not going to do that because they didn't do anything. Either that or their hand is trash. But also you don't need to tell them that your hand is trash. They can come to that conclusion on their own if they decide to. It's very interesting, like playing 1v1 again, and I feel like I've had to like relearn a lot of like just like the standard like set of Magic heuristics that I just have cultivated over like several years of several years of just playing just 1v1 Magic. How do I navigate a combo matchup? How do I navigate a mid-range matchup? How do I navigate control? What hands am I looking for when I know I'm playing against like mono red? For example, or like burn or something like that, or how do I sequence plays? When do I tap out? When do I push my advantage? When can I like develop and hold protection? So all of these very basic foundational Magic skills that I have just essentially lost, and it's really interesting like playing CDH, and I'm like, oh, I feel like I've opened my eyes once again to like, all right, that's how Magic the Gathering is played. But I think CDH is so different to how normal Magic is played, just because Commander just allows for just the most insane situations. At, me and our friend Tyler, we were talking, and we were like, what classifies like a board or a game as scuffed? And I had given like this very broad overview, and he was like, no, scuffed is when there's 4 Ristic studies on the table, just like an absolutely absurd scenario that just does not happen. It's like that board state just transcends what it means to play a game of Magic the Gathering, and you kind of that like base level Magic allure kind of falls away, and you start playing this weird social board game with Magic the Gathering. It's kind of like the facade to make things work. That's the bit of sugar to make the medicine go down, you know. And it's just, I don't know, very interesting perspective after playing just a lot of 1v1 and just playing CH and be like, yeah, this is a very different game. It's almost not Magic, but it's still kind of Magic.
Yeah, I think we've said that before too. Is like,
oh yeah.
CDH is like, it's much less akin to Magic, and it's like a game played with Magic cards.
Mm-hmm. No, we've 100% said that. I think it's just I think at a surface I definitely like understood that, but now I'm like I've really like come to grips with it, because like returning to Magic, I didn't return to like Standard or Modern or Pioneer or anything. You know, I returned to Commander, so a lot of like the stuff that I had like built up and tried to like relearn and apply was like old habits, old understandings and whatnot, old deck building theory, and trying to like relearn that from the ground up in like my own way. But taking that step back to like, how is this game played? How can I sharpen my own skills? Because I've often like thought the notion that you can translate a decent chunk of like 1v1 card game, 1v1 Magic skills into CDH. That like makes you a very strong, very tight technical player. Kind of heads up in a way, and you can't really do a lot of the inverse for 1v1. Like, you can't really politic your opponent 1v1 like into not counterspelling your thing. That's not like hot news or anything, but I think there's something to be said for having just really good, just strong foundational Magic skills going into like any given CDH pod, and then from there you can kind of like navigate and like navigate, what's the other word, assess like a given board, because that's really the biggest skill, is like really learning to assess the board. Because it's like, if you're staring down 4 or 5 5s, it's like, well, it's either I draw something that lets me live or I just die, and it's the waters are a bit murkier in CDH.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I would definitely agree with that. I think Murk is like a defining feature of the format, to be honest.
Yeah, it feels like everyone's got like an emblem that's like, yep, everyone's playing Murky. What does that mean? You won't see it. You just won't. So how did you like overall do at Cowtown?
Oh, terribly. I went 104 drop after day 1.
He bleeds.
Just awful.
Bleeds.
But I ended up drawing 4 out of the 5 games on the first day. I won to some unfortunate ethical decisions by one of my opponents that were revealed after the first game, and so not of the political variety, and so that was really, really sad. But aside from that, it was fine. It was like, the games were fine. Like, people were pretty great. I enjoyed basically all of them that I met. And then it was really fun to just sort of like be in that environment. I really like the tournament environment as just in general. Just the buzz and the hubbub of like all of the humans who are like, oh, I'm really excited to be here playing competitive Magic. So that was really, really cool. But yeah, it was a good experience. I definitely hope to play some more large events like that in the future. Nice.
Because I think over the course of this conversation, we've kind of discussed that like maybe at least like this current iteration of Cheshire just isn't like workshopped enough. Like, do you think like it's just a matter of like 1 or 2 flex spots and like a mulligan like priority shift to like work over there, or do you think like from the ground up you just be playing a different strategy?
No, I think it can definitely still work. Like I said, I drew all of my games.
Yeah, you didn't lose a game. You either drew or you won.
And of those games, I think I won 2 of them. If we'd been like 30 seconds to a minute and a half faster, I just ended up losing to the clock in 2 of those games, which is really unfortunate. And that's just, I just have to be better at managing my opponent's time. Being like, dude, you need to take a game action. Like, sometimes you just have to be the asshole and be like, yeah, I know you want to tank. You need to do something right now. Like, yeah. You've been staring at your hand for 14 seconds, going on 20 seconds now. Like, you have to make a play. I don't care if it's changing step and phase. Like, you have to do something other than, I could do this, and if I do this, then I this, and then I this, and it's just like, and then just calling the judge to watch for slow play. But, because my last game, I definitely got slow played, which was really unfortunate.
Okay.
Yeah, because they knew that there was literally 0% chance that I lost the game, or that the game would go to a draw if they passed the turn to me, and they knew it. And so they slow played their turn, and I knew they were gonna do it too. As soon as I think I silenced. No, I didn't silence because they would have had to pass sooner. There was 4 minutes on the clock. And they tried to do some breach thing, and I locked them out of it. Going into my turn with Ranger Captain available, and a Niv Mizzet and a couple of other things. I had so many cards in my hand.
Just stuff
from
things,
a Ristic or an Essence, something. I had some draw engine. And so they knew, and so they just spent the whole time dirtling. They're dockside for 15 or whatever, cast a Timna, cast a Crom, go to attack, and but all of their wins are locked out. They'd already exiled their Oracle to a Force of Will or something, and their Breach had been Besaged, and their Savines was locked behind a Drannith or something. They were just they could not win for whatever reason. I forget exactly what it was, but it was over for them. Not with the cards they had and with the current board state, and so they were gonna have to pass either way. And so that happened. They run out the timer, and they just go, okay, over the Cyclonic Rift, pass. Game's over. And I was like,
Float Sacred Pass, okay.
I was like, okay, yeah, it was literally time, and they were like, okay, over the Cyclonic Rift, pass the turn, and I was just
nothing more you need to do beyond that. That kind of seals the deal right there.
Okay, yeah, I was like, okay, dude. And then and so that happened, and then the thing that tilted me about that is after the match they had the nerve to be oh well, you should all just concede to me because I had the win on my turn, I would have won if I didn't get interacted with, and it's and this keeps me live for day 2 tomorrow, and I'm just bitch, please, all of us are live for day 2 tomorrow if we won. Shut the fuck up. Yeah, if you just passed the turn, I could win after the Cyclonic Rift. If you just passed the fucking turn, I could have won.
My super sweet combo would have gone all the way through if you didn't have Doomblade to stop me.
Right? Yeah, it was just like that. They're I could have won if XYZ and blah blah blah. And I was like, bro, there were 3 Ristic studies, a Niv Mizzet, 2 stacks pieces, 3 stacks pieces. Everyone had half their library in their hand. But all the interaction was spent in the past 3 turns because you all tried to jam wins, so everyone spent. If you just passed the turn with 2 seconds left on the clock, I would have won. I'm not conceding to you.
Yeah.
So it was
really. I love it. I love hearing I would have had it if it just reads like a Scooby-Doo.
It's classic Commander is what it is.
I would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for you meddling kids.
I had it on my next turn if I drew the perfect card. It's you okay?
You realize that at a certain point, every single person's untap is their attempt at a win, right? That's kind of how this game works.
Man, I would have won the game if you didn't counterspell my win the game spell. What? What is this?
Local table counters game-winning spell. Opponents mauling and seething.
Kind of, yeah. So, but to go back to the main premise of the question, no, I think the list is fine. I think I just have to shift my mentality going into it. I did make a couple of tweaks after playing over there. While I was over there, there was a lot of Nadu. And so I did have the chance to both copy and steal the Nadu player's commander several times throughout the day. And both or 3 times that I did it, it felt really good. And I got so far ahead to the point where I think 2 of the games where I would have won based on time was matches where I controlled a Nadu. And so I was all right, well, I have to make some swaps here because that just felt really good. So now I'm main decking it and being the villain.
I think I've come to the realization that I just need to be playing Nadu in a deck, and we're be taking advantage of Nadu in some capacity because even at rate, unless you are counterspelling it, I'm talking as a card in the 99, not the command zone, which contextually you should counterspell. It's just probably one of the best things to be doing in the format because if it lands, it at the very least trades 2 for 1 on your opponent. Like, you still get a
Absolutely.
card, you still get a land
Yes.
out of it at the very least. And if not, you will just run away with the game. Because I was playing against one of our local guys, and he's a Derevi player, and I just suck against Derevi. I don't know what it is. I Gilded Draked him twice. I protected it twice. I had stuff going, and he still just like won through it all. And you know, I think there comes a point when you like play card games, and you can like be frustrated at an opponent for like playing the better deck, and then like continue to complain about it, or you can just go, I clearly just want to play this deck. I should just play this deck.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm gonna be giving it a shot. I don't know if I'll stick on the Derevi train, but I think the list is really, really sweet, and I think it does what I need it to do. And like I looked over his list and we talked a little bit. There's some changes I want to make. There's like my own like, you know, deck building sauce I want to put in there. But the deck seems sweet. It wins instant speed. It does all the things. It values like No Tomorrow. It abuses Nadu. It kind of just does all the things I need it to do. And
Well, you
sucks
know
not
what,
having
the secret's-
Dockside, sucks not having Black Tutors, but like you can kind of make up for that.
Yeah, just by having so much access to mana on your turn, absolutely. But
Yeah.
you know the secret to beating Nadu player, or not Nadu, Derevi players is
What's
you
that?
just don't let them have creatures. Like, you just kill everything as soon as it lands. They're not winning the game.
Oh, trust me. At a certain point in that game, they were down to 2 cards in hand, and we were staring down a Thrasios Tevish Zot player who was like in big control of the board. I had like stolen their Derevi. I had like 6 1/1s. They were on literal like Nadu mana dork. And we were like trying to figure out like what to do, because like my hand's like fine, but I'm a little choked up on mana. And he's like, you know, you got to give me a card draw, at least one, right? I'm like, you're probably right. And like they still just won through it all. Like they were on so little, and they just got one instance where they were just able to push so far ahead. And Nadu just does that. You just get one push and you just get there.
Yes, that has also been my experience. It's like you just give that card literally anything, and the game's over. Like
It's just immediately over. I don't even know if like I necessarily need to like go to Derevi. I think I just need to jam Nadu in my list and just be done with it.
yeah,
Which like
I
doesn't
think the hard part
feel
is like
incorrect.
I think like there needs to be enough enabling tech
Mhm.
within a list. If it's in the command zone, it's easy. You can build around it, right? If it's in the main deck, you need to have other things that enable it. Like Derevi does super duper enable the card. And then there's enough other stuff. Like you're in 3 colors, you can just jam in some other stuff to forcibly enable it. I'm liking it in Kenrith because at worst case, your commander does enable it, even if it's like kind of hyper inefficient. Like at least you're going 2 mana, pump my creature, and also see a card, as opposed to 4 mana, see a card, or 2 mana, pump my creature. So you're kind of 2 for 1ing there. But then also just like being able to be on Bowmasters and Mayhem Devil and and all that stuff. You just like, okay, well, like I can target your stuff and try to kill it, or hear me out, I can target my stuff.
I can go ahead. And like I mean my deck is on nearly the same amount of enablers sans a command zone enabler for it. So like Nadu probably just slots into the list. Like I'm on Bowmasters, I'm on Mayhem Devil, I'm on Kitten, like I'm on enough stuff.
Yeah, and at that point you might as well give it a try.
Yeah, probably. I think that's just what I need to do. I think I just need to shift the idea, but
my eyes are like trained on this Bloomburrow set that's coming out. I'm trying to like figure out if there's anything in there that is good enough that I want to be playing it, and that it, like, if possible, also can be used to pivot into targeting my own stuff for Nadu.
yeah, no, some of the new cards that have been coming out are very, very interesting. I like a lot of the set. I just like the design in the set. I think it's very, very cool.
It feels like the thematic is it's very old school Magic, which I like a lot.
Yeah.
Like, it's very like, all right, this is our theme and we're going to stick to it. We're not going to pull anything like super out of left field, at least so far. Like, it feels like everything, all the card designs are flavorful and like unique enough, as well as still being strong, but also balanced. And just like the whole, like, okay, we're not going to have like every card being like monocolored or every card being like 3, 4, 5 colors. Like, there's a healthy balance of 1 to 2 colors, maybe a 3 color here and there. And also just like
Commander
all
deck,
little like
Commander products,
Magic
always
Mouse folk or whatever. Like, it's great.
It's great. It's adorable. I love it, and I've enjoyed seeing all the cards. But I mean, I'm gonna be real. I'm waiting for the big set reveal. I gotta dig through all those commons. I'm a Pauper gamer now. I'm excited to see the commons of every set.
Oh my
I gotta find all the fun stuff, all the good treasures. Yeah, I mean that's kind of the conversation I wanted to have today. I'm about done if you are.
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple, easy coverage today.
Yeah.
I guess my only ad at this point would just be like, check out Bloomberg if you haven't already. This set is sweet.
This set's very, very cool, and
Yeah. I'm scared for the next set, dude. This set looks insane.
Oh yeah, Duskborn. Yeah.
Duskborn. I think that's gonna be an insane set just from the few cards we've seen. It
I think
seems
based
scary.
on the few spoilers we have so far, the power level of that set seems
Very high.
next level. Like it
Yeah.
seems like if you thought MH3 was strong, I think there are going to be some. I'm hoping there are going to be some absolute bangers in Duskborn, because that's another set that I really like the flavor of, at least so far from what we've seen.
Yeah.
But I'm a big
yeah.
horror aficionado, so I love the whole like haunted house, like 80s horror, whatever they've got going on over there.
Yeah, I don't know. I really like the cards. I like the theme, but also at the same time, I like talking about like Bloomberg being like a set that feels very like entrenched in like the identity of Magic and like the aesthetics of Magic, and this kind of like spits in the face of that almost to a degree. But also like I had like similar weird reservations about like Neon Dynasty, for example. I think that set's awesome. I think the flavor was just right. Everything looked great. Everything felt great. And like I'm more than willing to be proved wrong. I'm just a hater sometimes.
I mean, dude, I feel you. I am a hater as well, so I get it. But I feel like, I see. I'm flipped. I'm swapped on that. I think Kamigawa was fine, like, but I did not appreciate the flavor of that set very much. It's just kind of not really my vibe. I really, really fucking love Innistrad, and so getting a set that feels very Innistrad-esque while also changing it up and being different enough is something I'm very excited for.
Yeah, no, I think the difference of being like Innistrad adjacent in that like it's a horror themed set and Innistrad is the horror themed plane, but have it not be exactly Innistrad.
Yeah, it's not
very
gothic.
very different thing.
Yeah, which I'm really liking so far. They have the stuff like the twitching doll and stuff. Some of these cards are really cool.
Yeah, they are. I like the chainsaw. The chainsaw is pretty cool.
The chainsaw. Oh, that card has a lot of like mechanically. That card is super on flavor.
It's been a while since I saw, like, maybe I just don't look at cards and think about them in that way anymore, but like I read Chainsaw for the first time, like, this is a really good design, like just a well-designed card. Like it's powerful, sure, it's decent in like standard environments and whatnot, but also like it's just super flavorful and I really, really dig it.
Yeah, I don't see it making much of a splash in Commander, but like, dude, you kill something, this thing gets a rev counter, and then it gets bigger, and then it kills the next thing and gets another rev counter and gets even.
It's
I'm
sick.
in.
No, it's a slicer card. It's a slicer card.
Oh, it's just true. Slicer's back, guys.
It deals 3 damage. It kills Drained Ninja straight.
It does, and that makes it a slicer card.
Yes, it does. Okay.
All right. Well,
with that, rev up those fryers, Krusty Krab.
Yeah.
All right. We'll catch you all later.